Hey everybody, my name is Matthew Sambanis. I'm a certified public accountant. My firm is based in Long Island, New York, and in today's video we are going to discuss the food crisis, in particular the food inflation crisis. We're going to be discussing major brands including General Mills, Starbucks, Six Flags, McDonald's, Burger Kings, and other brands that you're definitely familiar with, including Uber Eats and $4.99 Seattle mandate that that was added on to Uber delivery fees by Seattle, Chipotle, and other fun stuff. So anyway, today's July 8th. Happy belated 4th of July, and in lieu of the 4th of July, I'd like to point out that the cost of lemonade was 12% higher this year than last year, and the cost of barbecuing was up 5% this year versus last year, which is way above the Fed's 2% target rate that they claim to have, or their goal. And it was more than double their 2.5% rate that they came out with last month for their monthly reading on inflation. And Memorial Day barbecue cost was up actually 10% year over year, which is more than 5 times the Fed's inflation target. So how in the world the Fed ever expects to get down to 2% inflation is beyond me. We're also going to touch on one of our favorite people, Janet Yellen, who did a terrible job and has continued to do a terrible job in her current position. And first off, we have Bidenomics. That's the title of this article that I'm reading from. Not to get into politics, maybe not just yet. And by the way, if you're into economics, finance, making money, other things of that nature, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Anyway, Bidenomics, man sparks internet outrage after paying $9.35 for Diet Coke at Six Flags. Well, hopefully that was a very good Diet Coke. And, listen, this might not be a very fair place to pick when you're going to a concert, a football game, or whatever, Six Flags, because you're going to be ripped off. But how badly are you going to get ripped off? And are you okay with being ripped off that badly? I was at the airport recently. I wanted a cup of coffee, and the first place I found wanted like $5 for a small cup of coffee. And I said, no way, no thanks. And I just didn't even get it. And luckily, I kept on walking through the airport, and I saw a 7-Eleven, and I guess the rule is that they're not allowed to charge 15% higher than they would at a normal 7-Eleven. So it was only like $3.50 for a large cup of coffee, and I was very happy and to pay that. It's fair, it's reasonable, subjectively speaking, of course, when it only costs about 10 cents to make that, maybe another 10 cents for the cup. But point is these places tend to rip people off. So anyway, Bidenomics, so $9.35 for a Diet Coke. What got me started off on this tangent was I recently went to Chipotle. I didn't think much of it. I got a queso, I got a guacamole, I got a burrito, and I got a large soda. Actually, I think it was a regular soda, and it came out to $20. And if I wasn't starving and half shell-shocked from it, I probably would have just said, keep it. I'm not paying for this. And there was another article that I recently read where the ice cream man in Queens, New York, of course, where everything is absolutely overpriced, so is Long Island and most places to begin with, especially in New York, was charging $14 for an ice cream cone. And, listen, the consumer has to draw a line at some point and say, no, I'm not spending that money. And you have McDonald's charging $20 for a Big Mac now. And, everything is just absolutely overpriced. And, it's not even the people that can go to Six Flags, right? If you're going to Six Flags, all right, fine. You're ahead of the game. You're having a fun time. You have hopefully some disposable income. You're not putting it on your credit card, hopefully. And, good for you. And yes, you're going to get ripped off. But do they really need to charge you $9.35? And moving along, another user on TikTok pointed out paying $12 for M&Ms at a concert. And another, which I can identify with this, I was traveling last week, was spending $15 on a small bag of jerky at an airport. And another person mentioned buying a $10 bottle of water at Six Flags. So when I go to Costco, it's 25 or 35 cents for a bottle of water. So as to why they need to mark up their product 10,000%, I mean, listen, Six Flags moves a lot of water. They can't be paying more than 50 cents a bottle at the absolute high end. It's probably more like 10 cents, right? In order for Costco to sell a bottle for 25 cents, they're making money on it at that point. Then, Six Flags probably has the same bulk pricing power. So everything's just been, going through the roof astronomically, and there's also been some blowback as a result of this, which we'll also discuss. Another TikToker highlighted, cited an $85 bill for 2 hot dogs. All right, that should be $5 each. 2 slices of pizza, that should be another $5, and 3 drinks, so maybe another $10 at Sesame Place for a family of 4. So instead of what should be $20, and that includes them making money, they're charging $85. Is that greed? Yes. And is there shrinkflation going on? Yes. And are they substituting good quality products for bad quality products? Yes. Are they entitled to make a profit? Yes. Are they entitled to blatantly rip people off and just be such scumbags? Excuse my language. No. And what's the result of this? That, General Mills, who makes Lucky Charms, they make Wheaties, Cheerios, Blue Buffalo, Annie's, Fruit Roll-Ups, Nature Valley, and a bunch of other brands that recently came out. They missed guidance, and their full year guidance was actually lowered substantially, and they're blaming it on what? High food prices and a weak consumer. And weak consumer means that we're a consumer-based economy. 60% of our economy is based on consumption, which is a issue unto itself. They also make Yoplait and, again, like I said, plenty of other brands that you're familiar with. And, the General Mills chairman and CEO, Jeff Harmon, called the macroeconomic landscape a more challenging operating environment. And, this is really not more challenging. It's people are broke. And so you need to lower your prices because for the last 2 or 3 years, really last 2 years or 3 years, going back to COVID, everybody had a bunch of free money. And when you spend somebody else's money, you don't care. If I gave you $100, you really don't care because somebody gave it to you. Unless you're frugal and thrifty and smart and shrewd. Most people say, $100, didn't have to work for it. Versus if you had to go out and work for that $100, then you actually tend to care a lot and you're hopefully a lot more frugal with it. And I get it, Anyway, he blamed it on an elevated interest rates and persistent inflation have triggered consumer slowdown, mainly affecting the working poor segment, but new evidence of stress has emerged in the middle class. Yeah, so the middle class, instead of going to Whole Foods now, going to Trader Joe's, and all these other fine places, have been going to Walmart, or they buy, generic brand names instead of brand names, right? Consumers have been cutting back on spending in recent months and buying less food. I mean, that alone is sad, but then again, most of the food in America also goes to waste, right? So what's your experience with food? Have you noticed an uptick in prices? Are you paying through the nose? I stopped off yesterday at a ice cream parlor with my girlfriend. And, of course, it was like $7 for an ice cream cone that big and 3 scoops. And the woman behind us said, I'm from Massachusetts, and for $4 we get a cone and we get this much ice cream. So, maybe you have a different experience than I have. And if you do, then definitely please let me know. I'd greatly appreciate it. And let me know where you're from, Anyway, another article comes out. How much have groceries gone up? Jake Tapper, who said with a straight face, this is during the Biden-Trump standoff where Biden was, literally Trump didn't even have to show up and he would have won. They could have just asked Biden the questions and Biden just would have destroyed himself. And then Trump was just there to put the icing on the cake. Again, both of these guys, neither of them have been good for inflation. Our overall, plan of keeping interest rates at 0% for the last 20 years is why we're at where we're at today. Excuse me, stuttering and stammering. By the way, I just do this. I read. I go off my notes. I don't edit it. If I stutter or stammer, deal with it. And I appreciate your patience. Anyway, who believes that their grocery bills are only up by 20% in 3 years? There's plenty of instances here of how food has doubled and tripled and all that, and it's nowhere near that. I used to go and for $100 I'd get 4 to 5 bags of food at Trader Joe's. It's doubled. It's easily doubled, which is over a 3-year period, 33% per year inflation. And in one viral video that offered receipts, a man bought 45 items, he says a month of groceries 2 years ago for $145, Walmart software allows him to reorder that now. He tried it, and the new test is $414. And of course, Walmart came out and said a lot of those items were discontinued, but if they were discontinued, then why are you still selling them? Anyway, adding in some inflation in the first year, we can round it up to 100% annualized, which is hyperinflation by any measure. And yeah, that's what we experienced, is hyperinflation. Stock market's gone up, astronomically. The poor are getting poorer, rich are getting richer, and, the story goes on. And moving on to, food banks now. And this is just sad. It's like one thing to get ripped off. It's another if you have to go and wait on a line to get food. I thankfully live in a nice neighborhood, in a nice area in Long Island. And, 5 minutes from me, I believe every Tuesday they have a food bank around the train station. And the line just goes and goes and goes and goes. And I was thinking about either bringing that into this video or the next video I do. I'll have to get somebody to help me to edit it. But the point is, it starts, I believe, at 6 o'clock at night. It ends at 10 o'clock at night. I've brought food there plenty of times out of, wanting to help. I've donated a ton of food, spent thousands of dollars donating the food there. And, food insecurity is at an all-time high and getting higher. And, if you really want to know the true number of inflation, go to any of these food bank websites, and it'll show you what prices were 2, 3, 4 years ago and what they are now and why people can't afford them. And, they're referring to a food pantry that said on this particular Tuesday, the pantry served more than 100 households, a number that would have been shockingly high only 4 years ago. Today, it's the average. They reported an increase in visits of 112% from December 22 to the same month last year, meaning December 23. So in less than a year, their food visits have gone up 112%. And to put that in perspective, in 2021, this place was serving 17,000 people. In 2023, 2 short years later, it more than doubled, and they served 41,000. And now in 2024, they're on pace to serve more than 60,000 people. You're talking, double, triple, quadruple digits of people going to food banks. I mean, that's a travesty and, beyond sad. And, I think I read something where like 1 in 5 people go to food banks or something, I mean, as to what this massive increase is, obviously it's inflation. It's the terrible economy. When all these financial people are on TV saying, why is the economy so bad? What's wrong with Joe Biden? They're clearly not, middle class. They're not upper middle class who's been feeling it dramatically. And they're definitely not lower class, and they're not poor. So they have no perspective of being in the real world. And finally, Janet Yellen, the multimillionaire Janet Yellen, worth $20 million supposedly, and I think it's worth more than this. She's worth more than that, and I'll tell you why. Not that she's actually worth that, in actual value, but, that's her quote, net worth. Anyway, she was asked, she appeared to be out of touch about inflation when she asked if she'd been to the grocery store recently, and she insists that she goes every week. Right, so Janet Yellen, former Fed chairperson, millionaire Treasury secretary, says she goes to the supermarket every week. If she's lying about that, then what else is she lying about? So now magically, after this interview and getting scolded by everybody for saying food prices haven't gone that high, she made a grocery shopping appearance. Her husband, and their 6 bodyguards, right? Listen, if you have 6 bodyguards, you aren't going food. You aren't even making your own food. It's absolutely deplorable. And like I said, if she's going to lie about this, what else is she going to lie about? And she should be fired. She never should have been hired. It's beyond me. And so what's the result of that? What's the result of the poor, middle class, and upper middle class breaking down? Well, new article came out, Newsday.com, why your Starbucks drink is now half the price more fairly priced. So Starbucks has been offering deals, and they normally don't And Starbucks is something I've commented on. It's one of my guilty pleasures where I like a large caramel frappuccino, but at $7, it makes me want to vomit. And lately, I don't even get the full Starbucks. I get here's a large, 3/4 of it is the actual liquid, and the rest of it's whipped cream or just pure froth and slush. Anyway, if you're still watching, by the way, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what your experiences are, whether it's 7-Eleven, Starbucks, traveling, anything of that nature, the cost of food, going out to the ball game, the football game, whatever you're into, let me know. It helps me prepare for my next video. Anyway, the beloved coffee chain has long abstained from offering deals, but with inflation driving people away from cafes, they finally get it. Starbucks has begun to dish out deals on a regular basis. And, what else is going on here? Final article, Seattle mandates $4.99 fee on Uber Eats to help drivers. Deliveries crash 45%. So long story short is, and this $4.99 fee was supposed to go directly to the driver, I guess after credit card fees, of course, or something. Beats me, unless Uber added on the 3% credit card fee to make the consumer then pay more. But the end result is drivers are not helped by wage mandates, as is Seattle and New York, and customers complain about higher prices and cold food. So what's happened here? Well, New York City now requires that companies pay couriers at least $19.50, $20 an hour, $40,000 a year. Why are you going to even go to college when you can just deliver food and make $40,000 a year? I mean, shouldn't this be for like an entry-level job or something where you're starting out? Like when I got my first job, I pretty much volunteered and they started paying me, I think, $5 an hour or $5.25 an hour for minimum wage. Anyway, and this is what's the sick part is, per hour, per tips, up an average of $5.39 before its rules went into effect in December. So imagine you're paying somebody $5 an hour, they get to earn their tips, and now you have to pay them a minimum of $20 an hour. It's lights out. Uber Eats orders fell in Seattle 45% last quarter from the same period a year earlier after the company imposed a $5 fee on each to cover the city's new pay requirements. Demand also cooled in New York City, Uber, DoorDash, etc. Anyway, people have said app prices became absolutely nuts and added in various delivering fees to tip in. He started picking up the food himself. Yeah, at some point, people have a breaking point. They're going to nicely say, F you. It's like double, and they go on to say it's double the price to order the $20. It's like $20 burrito now, and I identify with that. So anyway, on the final note of this, Uber chief executive Dara Khosrowshahi, I'm never going to pronounce his name, it's worse than my last name, said the company has had to cut 25% of the delivery drivers who previously worked for the app in New York City. So this is the problem. When government gets involved, everything goes to hell, is what we're nicely saying. And, the benefit is, all right, fine, eventually we'll get back to lower prices. Everything will work itself out. That's the law of supply and demand. That's economics, preferably Austrian economics or economics, whatever you'd like to call it. And if you stayed on this far, I greatly appreciate it. And stay tuned for the next video. Have a great rest of the day.